We're going to start on Friday, March 3rd, 1944. I probably have read this before. We're going to go ahead and read it again. It's going to be in the Diary of Anne Frank. Anyway, Friday, March 3rd, 1944. Dear Kitty, when I look into the candle this evening, I felt calm and happy. Oma seems to be in the candle, and it is Oma, too, who shelters and protects me, and who always makes me feel happy again. But there is someone else who governs all my moods, and that is Peter. When I went up to get potatoes today and was still standing on the stepladder with the pan, he at once asked, "What have you been doing since lunch?" I went and sat on the steps, and we talked. At 5:15, an hour later, the potatoes, which had been sitting on the floor in the meantime, finally reached their destination. Peter didn't say another word about his parents. We just talked about books and about the past. The boy had such warmth in his eyes. I believe I'm pretty near to being in love with him. He talked about that this evening. I went into his room after peeling the potatoes and said that I felt so hot. You can tell what temperature it is by Margot and me. If it's cold, we are white. If it's hot, we are red in the face, I said. In love, he asked. Why should I be in love? My answer was rather silly. Why not? He said. And then we had to go for supper. Would he have meant anything by that question? I finally managed to ask him today whether he didn't find my chatter a nuisance. He only said it's okay, I like it. To what extent this answer was just shyness, I am not able to judge. Kitty, I am not like someone in love who can only talk about her darling. And Peter really is a darling. When shall I be able to tell him so? Naturally, only if he thinks I'm a darling too. But I'm quite capable of looking after myself, and he knows that very well. And he likes his tranquility, so I have no idea how much he likes me. In any case, we are getting to know each other a bit. I wish we dared to tell each other much more already. Who knows, the time may come sooner than I think. I get an understanding look from him about twice a day. I wink back, and we both feel happy. I certainly seem quite mad to be talking about him being happy. And yet, I feel pretty sure that he thinks just the same as I do. Yours, Anne. All right, so for this image, I'm looking at a candle. Because in the beginning, it talks about looking in the candle this evening, and I see Oma. Oma's a grandmother. Okay, and if you're curious. So we're going to draw a candle with some wax coming off of it. And in the flame, she saw Oma. Okay. So that gives you just a generic idea. And she felt calm and happy. Okay. It wasn't just Oma who was making her feel this way. We're looking at Peter as well. And they talked on the stairs, both feeling happy. Okay. So we're going to start with this, and we'll just do this. We'll work our way around this. He really is a darling, isn't he? I love that word. Okay, so that's going to be for entry March 3rd. We'll go ahead and put March 3rd down here. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next. Saturday, March 4th. This is the first Saturday for months and months that hasn't been boring, dreary, and dull, and Peter is the cause. This morning I went to the attic to hang up my apron when Daddy asked whether I'd like to stay and talk some French. I agree. First we talked French, and I explained something to Peter. Then we did some English. Daddy read out loud for us from Dickens, and I was in seventh heaven because I sat on Daddy's chair very close to Peter. I went downstairs at 11 o'clock. When I came upstairs again at 11:30, he was already waiting for me on the stair. We talked until 1:45. If, as I leave the room, he was getting a chance after a meal, for instance, and if no one can hear, he says, "Goodbye, Anne. See you soon." Oh, I am so pleased. I wonder if he's going to fall in love with me after all. Anyway, he is a very nice fellow, and no one knows what lovely talks I have with him. Mrs. Van Daan quite approves when I go and talk with him. But she asked today teasingly, "Can I really trust you two up there together?" Of course I protested. Really, you quite insult me, and from morn until night I look forward to seeing Peter. So we're looking at March 4th. And I like the idea of a book by Dickens just right here. Because that's what Pym read to her. Charles Dickens. Okay. And then they sat on the chair together. And if you're wondering what this is, it's their knees, kind of. And we'll go ahead and put Anne right here. Go ahead and give her some hair, the little ponytail. And we'll give Peter a hat. The bill flip backwards, just so you can see the difference between boy and girl. Okay, so they're very pleased. Anne and Peter get to listen to Charles Dickens. I hope that helps. Okay, hope you understand. Monday, March 6th. Dear Kitty, I can tell by Peter's face that he thinks just as much as I do. And Mrs. Van Daan yesterday evening said scoffingly, "The thinker." I was irritated. Peter flushed and was looking very embarrassed, and I was about to explode. Why can't these people keep their mouths shut? You can't imagine how horrible it is to stand by and see how lonely he is, and yet not be able to do anything. I can so well imagine, just as if I were in his place, how desperate he must feel sometimes in quarrels and in love. Poor Peter, he needs love very much. When he said he didn't need any friends, how harsh the words sounded to my ears. Oh, how mistaken he is. I can't believe he meant it a bit. He clings to his solitude, to his affected indifference, and his grown-up ways. But it's just an act, so as never to show his real true feelings. Poor Peter, how long will he be able to go on playing this role? Surely a terrible outburst must follow as a result of his superhuman effort. Oh, Peter, if only I could help you. If only you would let me. Together we can drive away your loneliness and mine. I think a lot, but I don't say much. I am happy to see him, and if the sun shines when I'm with him, I was very excited yesterday. While I was washing my hair, I knew that he was sitting in the room next to ours. I couldn't do anything about it. The more quiet and serious I felt inside, the more noisy I became outwardly. Who will be the first to discover and break through this armor? I'm glad, after all, that the Van Daans have a son and not a daughter. My conquest could never be so difficult, so beautiful, so good, if I had not happened to hit on someone the opposite sex. You know, P.S., you know that I'm always honest with you, so I must tell you that I actually live from one meeting to the next. I keep hoping to discover that he, too, is waiting for me all the time, and I'm thrilled. If I notice a small, shy advance on his side, I believe he'd like to say a lot just like I would. Just like he knows that it's just his clumsiness that attracts me. Yours, Anne. So for this one, I'm looking at Anne. I think I'm going to put her in her diary. she's going to be writing in her diary. So go ahead and do a pencil with the hand around it. When her arm is right here, she's going to be writing. She's going to be thinking. And there's her hair. And she's looking down and she's writing. And what is she thinking? She is thinking, why can't these people keep their mouths shut? Oh, Peter. If only I could help you. Okay. So there's that next one. This one is March 6th. Okay. So she's concerned about Peter. We'll go ahead and draw some pages here. Okay, that looks good. All right. Tuesday, March 7th. Dear Kitty, if I think now of my life in 1942, it seems so unreal. It was quite a different Anne who enjoyed that heavenly existence from the Anne who had grown up wise within these walls. So I think for this one we'll go ahead and stop, and I'm going to do a March 7th entry with a Venn diagram. You know what that is. We're going to be talking about Anne. Okay. So we're looking at 1942. And as she lists, we're going to go ahead and plug in some words to 1944, all right? Yes, it is a heavenly life. Boyfriends at every turn, about 20 friends. So boyfriends, 20 friends. Acquaintances, my own age, darling of all the teachers. Loved by teachers. Spoiled from top to toe by mommy and daddy. Lots of sweets, enough pocket money. Whatever could one want? So let's do a sweet. We'll do a sucker. There's a sucker. And then money. Okay. You will certainly wonder by what means I got around all these people. Peter's word attractiveness is not altogether true. All the teachers were entertained by my cute answers, my amusing remarks, my smiling face, my questioning looks. That is all I was, a terrible flirt. Coquettish and amusing, I had one or two advantages, which kept me rather in favor. I was industrious, honest, and frank. I would have never dreamed of cribbing from anyone else, and cribbing means to cheat. I shared my sweets generously, and I wasn't conceited. Would I have become rather forward with so much admiration? It was a good thing that in the midst of all the height of this gaiety, I suddenly had to face reality, and it took me a year at least to get used to the fact that there was no more admiration forthcoming. So at this point, she realizes she is not the center of the world. She doesn't need much attention anymore. Now I look back at the Anne as an amusing but very superficial girl who has nothing to do with the Anne of today. Peter said quite rightly of me, if I ever saw you, you were always surrounded by 2 or more boys, with a whole troop of girls. You were always laughing and always the center of everything. What is left of this girl? Oh, don't worry, I haven't forgotten how to laugh, or to answer back rapidly. I'm just as good, if not better, at criticizing people, and I can still flirt if I wish. That's not it, though. I like the sort of life, again, for an evening, a few days, or even a week. The life just which seems so carefree and gay. But at the end of that week, I should be a deadbeat and would be only thankful to listen to anyone who began to talk about something sensible. I don't want followers, but friends, admirers who fall not for a flattering smile, but what one does for one's character. So she's no longer the center of the world, desires true friends. Okay. I know quite well that the circle around me would be much smaller, but what does that matter, as long as one still keeps a few sincere friends? Yet I wasn't entirely happy in 1942, despite everything. I often felt deserted, but because I was on the go the whole day long, I didn't think about it and enjoyed myself as much as I could. Consciously or unconsciously, I tried to drive away the emptiness I felt with jokes and pranks. Now I think seriously about life, so she's serious. Okay? Seriously about life and what I have to do. One period of my life is over forever. The carefree school days are now gone, never to return. I don't even long for them anymore. I have outgrown them. I can't just only enjoy myself as my serious side is always there. I look upon my life up until New Year as it were through a powerful magnifying glass, the sunny life of the home. Then come here to 1942 and a sudden change. The quarrels and the bickering, if I could understand it, I was taken by surprise. And the only way I could keep up with some bearing was to be impertinent. The first half of 1943, my fits of crying, the loneliness, how I began slowly to see all my faults and shortcomings, which are so great and which seemed much greater then. During the day, I deliberately talked about anything and everything that was farthest from my thoughts and tried to drop him to me, but couldn't. Alone, I had to face the difficult task of changing myself, to stop the everlasting reproaches, which were so oppressive and which reduced me to such terrible despondency. Things improved slightly in the second half of the year. I became a young woman and was treated more like a grown-up. I started to think and write stories and came to the conclusion that the others no longer had the right to throw me out like an Indian rubber ball. I wanted to change in accordance with my own desires. So she seeks change. Okay. I also like the image of an Indian bouncing ball. I'm going to have that ball here. And you have a ball here. Here. Okay. I don't think then of all the misery, but all the beauty that still remains. This is one of the things that Mummy and I are so entirely different about. Her counsel when one feels melancholy is, think of all the misery in the world and be thankful that you were not sharing it. My advice is, go outside, go to the fields and enjoy nature, the sunshine. Go out and try to recapture happiness in yourself and in God. Think of all the beauty that's still left in and around you and be happy. I don't know how Mommy's idea of being right, because then how are you supposed to behave if you don't go through the misery yourself? Then you are lost. On the contrary, I found that there's always some beauty left in nature, sunshine, freedom, in yourself. These can help you. Look at these things, then you will find yourself again and God, and then you can regain your balance. And whosoever is happy will make others happy too. He who has courage and faith will never push away your misery. I'm going to